I'm Emily Mashak, and you're listening to Tuned In to NoCo, Town Square Media show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm talking today again with Marisol Jackson about the New Hope Youth Ranch's upcoming Superheroes for Hope Gala. So thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Great to have you back. And now, before we get into the event itself, for those who may have not been able to catch you last time, can you tell me a little bit about what New Hope Youth Ranch is and how are you guys doing in 2021?
How much time did you say we had? New Hope Youth Ranch is really out of the box thinking of how do we help our community, those that suffer with crisis, mental health illness, and special needs. And while we are designed for children, this year, like you asked, how we kind of did things different. 2020 was a whole different year. And we had clients that were not just children, but adults as well. And so helping them with mediated services, going the extra mile, walking with them, and helping them to get like Social Security, medical appointments, making sure that children that have certain challenges, is it really a behavioral issue? Is it a cultural issue, like a situation within the family? Or is it really a true disability? And so helping them get to those places rapidly.
Yeah. And now, since your time starting New Hope, how have you seen it really impact this community here in Northern Colorado?
Man, I wish that we could bring some of the clients, but because the cases are, some of them are families in address confidentiality programs, and some of our clients are victims of sex trafficking. We can't really quantify or tell about each of their stories, but it's one life at a time. I think working interagency with other nonprofits or with DHS on some cases to help quickly get the family to the place that they need to be, or the level or reconciliation or the medical help they need. So while I wish we could save all the people quite rapidly, it's really just one family at a time and investing and helping.
Yeah, well, I know our listeners appreciate that our community has a resource like this. And you have an event coming up, the Superheroes for Hope Gala. What's going on? What do people need to know?
Well, Superheroes for Hope is our actual annual gala. Our first year we had it at the Rialto in Loveland, and it was more geared for adults. But in 2020, when everything shifted, and of course we couldn't have our second gala, we really saw a great need for things for children and families. Everyone's been cooped up, all the events have been canceled, and we're like, okay, what can we do now for not only for client families, but just for our community and have an awesome event? So instead of an adult gala that's more higher class, we want everyone to be able to come. Families of all kinds and children, and we've got all these other things available that wasn't in our traditional gala. So like we shifted our time to a Saturday from 10:30 to 1:30. And then we really opened it up so people can just come at any time. While we do have the traditional silent auction, which a lot of our donors are small business owners between Fort Collins, Windsor, Loveland, and Estes Park. We have some amazing supporters that have come along the side of us again. And we want people to have lunch. And so we did it more at a family-friendly price. And just come in your costumes. Like, we're really excited. The team of volunteers that's helping us set this up, we've got the backdrops and the silent auction and the games and the bouncy house. And we have a surprise superhero, actually, that's going to be there. So, yeah, I want families to have a great time. I think everybody misses that family event kind of atmosphere. But we do say come in a costume, and everyone will be able to get a prize. The first 500 people for sure. One of our sponsors has a prize for everybody. But then there will be a couple of costume competitions where you'll get an additional prize. And so we really want people to have a great time.
Yes, I know our community is ready to get back to events. And now you touched on this a little bit before, but how can people sign up? Day, time, where do they need to go?
So we made it possible to be able to purchase tickets through our website. So if you go to the Gala tab at newhopeyouthranch.org. And you click on the gala. You have an option to buy an individual ticket or a family ticket. And I wish there was you can itemize everyone in your family. But what that allows us to do is we see who's buying them, and then we get your lanyards done in advance. Because when you come to the event, you're going to check in, everybody gets a superhero lanyard. And that kind of helps us for our photographer to know who they can take pictures of and not for publicity. Some families want to stay anonymous and not known. But of course, we do hope everyone comes in their costumes. That's one way to purchase it. The other way will be there at the site. And there will be other things you can purchase at the site. So while we hope people come for our silent auction and our great food, families that come that don't have costumes can buy capes and masks. So we have a really inexpensive opportunity there for capes and masks to be bought at the last minute. And there's some adult Mardi Gras masks for adults if they just want to mask up so they can have a great time with pictures. And then they can purchase their tickets right then and there. And we also have, what do you call the bags? The backpacks, the string backpacks.
Yes.
with New Hope Youth Ranch on it. That is also a purchase item that will help support New Hope. And it says, thrive, not just survive. So we have those available so families can put all the extra giveaways that will be there.
And you'll have guests at the event as well, right?
Our surprise one is Captain America of Colorado.
Oh.
I don't know if you've ever met him at the Night to Shine event or Make-A-Wish events, but he's pretty famous. He has a lot of followers. He's on Facebook. I've met him several times, and I'm super excited. When I asked him to come, I sent him a text. I said, Captain, this is Wonder Woman. We need you at the superhero event. But it was really neat because we got to do that play back and forth. The local superheroes, though, are going to be the opportunity for families to have pictures with real superheroes on the front lines. And so we have a fire truck coming with the fire department, the local police, the sheriff's office, and BACA. BACA is Bikers Against Child Abuse that will be there. And they'll have their bikes set up so kids can get on them and take pictures with them. They have giveaways. And we have a couple other sponsors that will be coming as well, and they'll have booths there.
That sounds so exciting. And now I want to ask, because you mentioned that slogan, you said thrive, not just survive. Can you tell me more about what that means, especially for New Hope?
Well, New Hope, like we had talked about previously, like the St. Jude research model. So while we can't always provide cures for families with mental health or a disability, we can provide hope. And the whole point around New Hope Youth Ranch and what we're trying to do is to be able to bring families to their greatest potential in their disability or in their mental challenge or whatever the situation, and just bring them up to the highest level as we walk with them through it. And that's about thriving. I don't want to just survive 2020. I want to thrive through whatever we have. And so just being able to work through those challenges. And I can share one story that I had permission to share, if you like.
Yeah, that would be great.
So again, while we primarily work with children, and I use a lot of the superhero action figures and Legos to work with children, because it kind of breaks this unspeakable barrier, because children connect to superheroes and they love what superheroes do, and they kind of see themselves either as a villain or as a superhero, and trying to help them transition behavior from maybe the Hulk into Captain America and those attributes. So superheroes are very important for young people. And then working through Lego therapy is super important as well, because while we have to talk about really yucky things in some situations, being able to process and put a Lego set together while we're talking about that kind of takes away everybody looking at us. And do we really have to talk? But it is actually a therapeutic process using both sides of our brain. So both sides of our brain are processing this trauma that we're trying to work through. And it's just so beneficial. I love it when kids come in, and I have a special sign on my wall. And it's really for autistic kids that don't, or young children that can't put words with their feelings. And they walk in and they may be super angry when they come in or frustrated. And so they move their little avatar to that. But when we're done in an hour of working together and they move it to excited or happy, Man, that just makes my day because they're learning how to manage their own feelings and behaviors through really hard situations that they honestly don't have control over. And that, to me, is thriving and not just surviving it. One story I'd love to share is about a client came to us a couple years ago, and this client is an adult. And so, like I said, we have sometimes, I don't turn people away. I probably should learn to say no, but I really feel like these are the cases that are falling through the gaps. And that's really what New Hope's about. We're not trying to duplicate what other nonprofits are doing, but we're trying, a lot of the most difficult cases that come that are falling through the gaps are usually ones that come into our sphere. And this one lady, elderly lady, had worked her lifetime, ended up with a severe medical disability, and she couldn't work anymore. And I just remember her reaching out to me for several times, and I had known her previously. And man, her blood pressure was like 220 over 110 for like a month. And she just had these migraines, and she was really sick. And I'm like, okay, that's it. And we couldn't get her the help in the state. We tried to advocate in the state that she lived in, and it wasn't Colorado. And we couldn't get her any of the helps. We couldn't get her Social Security, anything she needed for medical attention. And so when she moved over here, in essence, she ended up losing her home, her car, her possessions were put into a storage unit, and what we were hoping was a temporary homelessness. So we provided the temporary shelter. So she came here with a status called homeless with temporary shelter, and then trying to navigate. But as soon as she got here, one of the bonuses of just the blessings of the connections I have is we got her on Medicaid ASAP, like within 2 hours of her applying. She saw chief of staff that day. And then by the end of that week, she was in MCR for the cardiac unit for 3 days. And that just kind of tells you how serious her medical case was. Well, immediately we applied for Social Security. So this was her third attempt. And I don't know if anybody's listening that has had cases or disabilities, but one of the greatest challenges is being denied. And then you're questioning, am I sane? Do I really have a medical disability? Do I really deserve this? And then what I love to tell people is the Social Security is designed to deny you. That's what their design is, even if you have a valid disability. And the whole time she's like, well, maybe I should just try to work again. Maybe I should do this. And this lady couldn't even go a day without throwing up or having severe medical issues. Like, she spent 19 months. In the end, she had to have chemo, and she has a serious disability that with her kidneys that doesn't have a cure. And so how do we get her to a manageable health where she can function every day without help and overcome all the different surgeries and all the different specialists? And if you think about, I think she has 9 specialists. Wow. After she got here. Now think about being alone, trying to navigate through the medical system. Who do I need? Who do I trust? Where do I go next? And just trying to remember your symptoms and your needs. And then and I went with her to almost all her appointments. I haven't gone recently because she's in that place where she doesn't need the extra help. She doesn't need a driver to take her for her chemo treatment or the chemo process, but making sure that she was taken care of. And she did end up getting COVID, and that came about a month after her last chemo treatment. And so getting her into the hospital, just really walking through her with the process. And that's the heart of what we do. It's just really caring and helping her believe that she really was going to win the case. And so when she got denied Social Security for the third time, they denied her probably in 2019. We immediately got her an attorney. And what I know about that process is if you get an attorney, you're going to win, because an attorney will not take a case pro bono knowing that they only get paid contingency if you win. And so I knew that she was going to win, but she didn't know. And so in the process, I've watched this lady lose all her possessions, but yet somehow God has restored her through time, and she's lived only on $215 a month for several months. And she got housing, so she finally got housing. And I mean, just to see her. And so I took her with me on a trip up to Estes to see some of our sponsors. And while we were driving, she says to me, the hearing is next week. Will you be able to be there? And I said, of course. And she goes, well, if God already knows I'm going to win, then why can't we just settle out of court? Why do we have to go through with the case if it's such a solid case? And so flippantly, I said, okay, God, if you know she's going to win, can you just settle this out of court? And then we just kept driving on, right? It was just a real flippant prayer, but I already knew she was going to win. So the next day she calls me up and she was so melancholy. I'm like, oh my gosh, is she in the hospital again? What's going on? And I call her back and she says, by the way, my attorneys called and we won. They settled out of court. So, and still, that is such a big, long process because disability and SSI, when you pay into it your lifetime and then you're denied when you have a valid disability, I mean, that's heartbreaking. And I know that there are so many families listening that maybe they have a child with a disability, maybe they have a medical disability, or maybe they went through COVID and now they're struggling with secondary COVID symptoms. And all of those are valid. And there's different pieces in the medical community that whether DHS pays for in-home caregivers, which I have a family that has in-home caregivers taking care of the children from the COVID, the secondary COVID. And then, what parts of help can I have? Say maybe a family has autistic children and they've tried to get into one program and the program's full, or they have a 6-month waiting list. So it's like, so now what? Now how do we get help? How many of the families were displaced out of their adult daycare programs or the special need programs that happened during COVID? And so then the families had to carry the load again of the full-time caregiving. So a lot of times those extra programs that are available to them lifts that burden. And so for me, in all the work that we do is how do we walk along the side of them? How do we lift that burden to help bring some relief? What kind of programs are they not involved in that we know about, that we can connect them to? Is there special testing that needs to happen? Is there more medical that needs to happen to get them to that level of being able to function?
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And thank you for sharing that story. And like you said, I know this will resonate with a lot of our listeners. And if it is, and they need to reach out, how can they get involved with New Hope? What can they do?
Well, if they want to reach out as a client family, they can always go to our website, which has information, or Facebook. So our contact information's right there. We do have one thing that kind of changed from 2019 when we first met, and we had first gotten our office at the Life Center in Loveland at the House and Neighborly Service Building, is we have a bigger office with more therapy room for children therapy, and then being able to be flexible in 2020. So a lot of our client families, we went out to the parks so that we were all COVID safe and appropriate. We did a lot of that, but I also did a lot of transporting of clients into appointments. So just being able to reach us, either you can go to the Life Center in Loveland if you're already there, or you can reach out through our website. Our contact information, phone numbers are all there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to talk to me. It was great to get together with you again, and I'm so excited you're able to have this event. Is there anything else you would like listeners to know?
If you feel a connection in our program or you want to know more about it, please reach out. We have such a big vision, but we would love to have you as a volunteer, or maybe you've got a special service that you are great at, like grant writing. If you just feel that connection, please reach out. We would love to have extra help in these processes.
Perfect. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Again, that was Marisol Jackson talking about New Hope Youth Ranch's Superheroes for Hope Gala. Learn more at newhopeyouthranch.org.